It was one of those quiet nights when the world feels heavy with silence, the kind that almost hums in your ears. I was curled up on the couch, a book open in my lap, pretending to read while the clock kept reminding me that Matt was late again. He'd said he was watching the game with his friends, but something inside me stirred, that small, stubborn instinct that women are taught to silence. I tried to brush it off, telling myself not to be paranoid. Still, every tick of the clock made the air thicker, harder to breathe. When the phone rang, it cut through the quiet like a blade. Unknown number. My heart kicked hard against my ribs as I reached for it, half expecting bad news, half hoping it was nothing. "Hello?" I said, my voice barely steady. The man on the other end spoke with a calm authority that made me instantly cold. "Mrs. Turner, this is Officer Reed from the NYPD. Your husband, Matt Turner, was the victim of an assault and robbery." For a moment, I couldn't move. "What? Oh my God, is he okay?" The words tumbled out before I could think. He told me Matt was stable, but needed me to come to Robert Greene Hospital immediately. I grabbed my purse, my car keys, my phone, anything within reach. My body moved faster than my mind, but inside, thoughts crashed and collided. Robbed? How? And why wasn't he with his friends like he said? The drive to the hospital felt endless, like the road itself was stretching just to torture me. Every red light mocked me, every passing headlight blurred through the haze of panic. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly they ached, but I couldn't loosen them, not until I knew he was really okay. My mind kept looping through possibilities, each one darker than the last. Was he alone? Did someone target him? Or was there something he hadn't told me? When I finally pulled into the hospital parking lot, the air outside felt too cold, too sharp. The fluorescent lights inside burned my eyes as I ran toward the reception desk. "Matt Turner," I gasped, barely able to speak. The nurse, calm and detached, typed something on her computer before glancing up. "He's in room 214, she said. "He's conscious, and there's someone with him." Her tone was casual, but those words landed like a knife. Someone with him? I nodded quickly, pretending not to care, pretending to just be relieved. But as I walked down that long, sterile hallway, something inside me shifted. The smell of disinfectant mixed with the low hum of machines, and I could hear my pulse in my ears. My heart should have been breaking from worry, but instead, something colder was blooming. Doubt. Fear. And something I couldn't yet name, not until I reached that door and heard the voice I knew better than my own. "Amanda?" Her voice floated through the half-closed door, soft, familiar, impossible to mistake. For a second, I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. Maybe stress was making me hallucinate, but then I heard it again, clearer this time, her laugh fading into concern. My stomach dropped. What was my sister doing here? My hand froze on the doorknob as my thoughts scrambled for logic. Maybe she'd come to support me. Maybe the police had called her too. None of it made sense. I pushed the door open just enough to see inside. There was Matt, pale, bruised, a bandage around his head. But he wasn't alone. Amanda sat beside him, her hand resting gently over his. The air seemed to vanish from the room. My first instinct wasn't even anger, it was disbelief, the kind that steals your breath before the truth has a chance to hurt. They both looked up, eyes wide, faces draining of color, as if caught mid-crime in a place that smelled of medicine and guilt. My mouth opened, but no words came. Only one thought repeated in my mind, sharp and merciless. What else have they been lying about? I stepped into the doorway, my pulse steadying in a strange, unnatural calm. Whatever this was, it wasn't going to end tonight. No, this was just the beginning of something neither of them saw coming. The silence that followed felt louder than any scream could have been. I stood there, frozen, watching my husband and my sister scramble for excuses that would never make sense. "Amanda?" I finally managed to say, my voice trembling more from rage than shock. She flinched like a child caught stealing. "Clarice?" I, I was just, I didn't let her finish. Just what? Sitting beside my husband? Holding his hand? At midnight? The words sliced through the sterile air, sharper than any scalpel in that hospital. Matt tried to speak, his tone shaky and rehearsed. Clarice, please, this isn't what it looks like. That line, the one every guilty man learns by heart, only fueled the fire rising in my chest. I crossed my arms, forcing a laugh that sounded more like disbelief. Oh, really? So, what am I supposed to think? You two are comforting each other after your mugging? Amanda's eyes filled with tears, but I saw no innocence there, only fear of exposure. And that fear told me everything I needed to know. She whispered, I didn't mean for you to find out like this. Her voice cracked, and it hit me. She wasn't denying it. The betrayal was laid bare, raw and unfiltered, right there between the heart monitors and hospital curtains. My heart pounded in my ears, but my voice came out cold, almost detached. Find out what, exactly? That my husband's a liar, or that my sister's the one helping him do it? Neither spoke. Neither blinked. In that heavy, suffocating silence, the truth finally stopped hiding. Matt's eyes darted between us like a man trapped between fire and ice. Clarice, please, he whispered, his voice breaking. I never meant for any of this to happen. I tilted my head, watching him squirm, the same man who once promised I'd never have to question his loyalty. You didn't mean for it to happen? I repeated, letting the words hang like smoke. You don't just accidentally end up with your wife's sister, Matt. He dropped his gaze, shame painting his face, but not a single apology could fix what I saw. The image of his hand still resting over Amanda's burned into my mind like a scar. Amanda stood, her voice small but trembling. Clarice, I swear I didn't want to hurt you. Her hands shook as she reached toward me, and for a moment I saw the girl I grew up protecting, the sister who borrowed my clothes and called me her best friend. But now all I saw was a stranger wearing her face. You did, I said quietly. You both did. The tears she shed didn't move me. They only confirmed that guilt had finally caught up to her, too late to matter. The beeping of the heart monitor filled the silence between us. Matt muttered something about love and confusion, but it only made me colder inside. Love? I said, almost laughing. You don't get to use that word with me anymore. I turned toward the door, my pulse steady now. My grief had burned into clarity. Before leaving, I looked at both of them. Two people who once meant everything. And said, You deserve each other. But I promise you, you won't see what's coming next. As I stepped out of that hospital room, something inside me shifted. A quiet, dangerous calm settling where heartbreak should have been. The automatic doors opened with a hiss, letting in a gust of cold air that felt almost cleansing. My body trembled, but not from shock anymore. It was focus. Purpose. I walked through the parking lot under the harsh glow of streetlights, each step echoing like a promise I hadn't spoken out loud yet. The night sky above felt different now, not comforting, but complicit. Driving home, I replayed every conversation, every lie, every excuse that suddenly made sense. The late nights, the missed calls, the perfume that wasn't mine. They'd both looked me in the eye and chosen deceit, thinking I'd never notice. My fingers gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I wasn't going to cry. They didn't deserve my tears. What they deserved was consequence. Quiet, deliberate, unforgettable consequence. By the time I reached the house, the anger had transformed into something colder, a plan forming beneath the surface. I walked in, tossed my purse on the counter, and looked around the home we built together. It no longer felt like a safe place. It felt like evidence. I stood there for a long moment, staring into the darkness, knowing this was only the beginning. They thought they'd broken me. What they didn't realize was that they'd just given me a reason to rise. The days that followed moved like molasses, slow, heavy, suffocating. The silence in the house was almost theatrical, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath, waiting for the next act. Matt came home from the hospital limping slightly, but it wasn't his body that looked broken. It was his pride. I watched him move through the house like a stranger, careful, cautious, as though any sound might set off a mine. I said nothing. Words had become useless currency between us. He'd spent them all. Amanda tried calling, texting, even showing up at my door once. I let the phone ring. I let the knocking fade. The same sister who used to finish my sentences now couldn't find a single word worth hearing. At night, I'd sit in the kitchen with a cup of tea, staring at the reflection in the window, a woman I barely recognized. Her eyes were tired, but they were sharper now, clearer. I'd lost something that night in the hospital, but what replaced it wasn't weakness. It was resolve. At dinner, Matt finally tried to talk. "Clarice, please," he started, his voice trembling. "We made a mistake. I was drunk. It just happened." I looked up, meeting his eyes, and smiled, the kind of smile that hides a storm behind it. "Drunk?" I said. "You were so drunk you found your way to my sister's bed?" His face tightened, regret and fear tangled together. He didn't know it yet, but I was already setting things in motion. His apology meant nothing. My silence meant everything. He tried again, desperate now. "I ended it, okay? I swear it's over." His words hung in the air like smoke that wouldn't clear. I placed my fork down gently, almost tenderly, and looked straight into his eyes. "Good," I said, calm and steady, "because I'm ending something too." The confusion on his face was almost satisfying, like watching someone realize too late that the game they thought they controlled had just turned against them. "What do you mean?" he asked. I didn't answer. I just smiled. Silence, I'd learned, could be louder than fury. That night, after he went to bed, I opened my laptop and began collecting everything I needed. Photos from Amanda's social media, screenshots of text messages I'd already seen flashing on his phone weeks before. Records from his calls, timestamps from the night he said he was with the guys. Even the bar's parking lot had cameras, and people talk when you ask the right way. The truth was everywhere, waiting to be organized like puzzle pieces. And I was going to make sure they fit perfectly. Each click of the mouse felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. I wasn't screaming. I wasn't breaking things. I was rebuilding. Slowly, methodically, one file at a time. The rage that had once burned through me was now ice-cold precision. I didn't need revenge that was loud or messy. I needed it to be clean, surgical, the kind they'd never see coming until it was already done. By morning, I'd already mapped out the next step. The house felt eerily still, the kind of stillness that comes right before lightning splits the sky. Matt moved around like a man walking through a dream, unaware that every careless lie he'd told was now a weapon in my hands. I watched him pour his coffee, acting like nothing had changed, and for the first time in weeks I felt free. Not happy, not yet, but free. He thought my silence meant surrender. He couldn't have been more wrong. At work, I kept my composure, smiling when needed, nodding when spoken to. But behind that mask, I was rewriting my story. I had already contacted an old friend, someone who owed me a favor in tech, to recover deleted messages and trace the photos' metadata. I wasn't just gathering evidence anymore, I was building the truth they'd both tried to bury. Every discovery made me colder, steadier, more determined. If Betrayal had rewritten the rules, then I'd learned to play better than anyone. That night, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the man who'd once been my whole world. He looked peaceful in his sleep, unaware of the storm gathering right beside him. I realized then that revenge isn't born out of hatred. It's born out of clarity. The moment you see people for who they truly are, there's no turning back. I turned off the lamp, lying down quietly beside him. The storm hadn't broken yet, but I was already the thunder. 2 weeks later, I sent out the invitations. Polite, simple, deceptive. Family dinner, the message read. "It's time to make peace," I'd written beneath it. Everyone accepted, of course. They always do when they think reconciliation is coming. The house looked perfect that night, every candle lit, every plate shining. I'd even cooked Matt's favorite dish, a small touch of irony that made me smile as I arranged the table. He thought it was a sign of forgiveness. It was a setup for revelation. When the doorbell rang, my pulse didn't quicken. Amanda walked in first, wearing guilt disguised as grace. She avoided my eyes, her hands twisting nervously around her clutch. Matt followed, freshly shaved, acting as if civility could mask decay. Our parents arrived soon after, their laughter light, unaware of the storm I'd choreographed. I greeted each of them with warmth, or at least something that looked like it. I wasn't just hosting dinner, I was directing a reckoning. As we sat, the air grew thick with tension wrapped in small talk. Matt tried to fill the silence with meaningless chatter about work, about recovery, about anything but the truth. Amanda forced a smile, sipping her wine like it might numb her guilt. I watched them both, calm and patient, the way a hunter studies movement before taking aim. "You know," I began softly, "I've been thinking a lot about forgiveness lately." All heads turned toward me. That was my cue, and the beginning of their end. Amanda's fork paused mid-air, her eyes darting to mine. "Clarice, I think we should talk privately," she started, but I lifted a hand, stopping her cold. "No need," I said, smiling as I reached for the remote on the table. "I actually have something to show everyone." The room fell into silence. Even the soft music playing in the background seemed to fade. Matt shifted in his seat, his jaw tightening as if he already knew what was coming. "Clarice," he muttered, his voice warning, pleading, but it was too late. I pressed play. The television screen came to life. First, a series of text messages appeared. Her name, his name, words they'd whispered in secret, then photos, dimly lit hotel rooms, selfies, screenshots, timestamps. A collective gasp filled the room. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father's eyes darkened, his jaw clenched tight. Matt's face drained of color, Amanda's tears already spilling before the second video began. It was all there, their plans, their lies, their betrayal displayed in high definition. I didn't look away once. I wanted them to feel it. The exposure, the humiliation, the way it burned to be seen. "This," I said, my voice calm, measured, "is what betrayal looks like. When the people you trust the most stab you in the same wound." Amanda sobbed. Matt reached across the table as if to plead for mercy, but mercy had left me weeks ago. "Clarice, please," he started. I leaned back, eyes steady. "No, Matt. You had your chance to explain. Now everyone knows exactly who you are." The room erupted, voices overlapping, chairs scraping against the floor, my mother shouting Amanda's name like it might undo what she'd just seen. My father demanded answers, his voice breaking under the weight of disbelief. Amanda cried harder, her mascara bleeding down her face, while Matt sat there frozen, gripping his glass so tightly I thought it might shatter. But me? I was still, completely still. For the first time in weeks, I felt control return to my body, quiet, electric, absolute. I stood, sliding my chair back slowly, letting the chaos unfold behind me. "Dinner's over," I said softly, almost kindly. I just wanted the truth to have a seat at the table. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. As I walked past them, I caught Amanda's trembling whisper, "Clarice, please, don't do this." I paused for just a heartbeat, turning to meet her eyes. "I didn't do this," I said. "You did." And with that, I left her to drown in the consequences she'd built herself, one secret at a time. Outside, the air felt sharp, almost cleansing, like a storm had just passed. My heels clicked against the driveway as I walked to my car, the sound crisp in the night. I could still hear the echoes of my family's voices inside, the confusion, the heartbreak, the shame, but I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The truth was finally free, and so was I. Yet deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. Not yet. What came next would be quieter, and far more devastating. The aftermath was brutal, but not for me. The fallout spread like wildfire, consuming everything they'd built on lies. Word got out fast. Matt's company didn't take long to address the matter privately, which was corporate language for firing him before his scandal tainted their reputation. His name was whispered in offices, his dignity shredded in emails. Meanwhile, Amanda's fiancé, the man she once bragged about endlessly, vanished from her life the moment the evidence hit the internet. He didn't even call. Just a silent goodbye, one she more than earned. I watched it all unfold from the quiet comfort of my kitchen table, sipping my coffee as if it were any ordinary morning. There was a strange peace in seeing justice take its course without lifting another finger. I didn't need to chase them. The truth had already done that for me. Still, there was a part of me that wanted to see his face, to witness the moment Matt realized what losing me really meant. So when he showed up at my door days later, desperate and broken, I wasn't surprised. I'd been waiting. He looked nothing like the man I'd married. His eyes were hollow, his voice trembling with regret. "Clarice," he began, barely holding himself together. "Please, I lost everything. My job, my reputation. I need you." There it was, the irony, the audacity. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, studying him like a stranger. "You needed me when you decided to be faithful," I said softly. "Now you need consequences." The silence that followed was almost poetic, a requiem for the life he threw away. He stared at me like a man standing on the edge of a cliff, hoping I'd reach out before he fell. "You're really just going to walk away?" he asked, his voice cracking, his eyes red and tired. I tilted my head slightly, studying the man who had once sworn I was his forever. "No, Matt," I said, calm and sure. "You're the one who walked away, the moment you walked into my sister's arms." His lips parted like he wanted to argue, to justify, to rewrite history, but nothing came out. Truth has a way of silencing liars. He tried to step closer, but I held my ground. I could smell the faint trace of his cologne, the same one I used to buy him every Christmas, and it almost made me laugh. "You can't fix this," I said, my tone low but unwavering. "You can't undo what you made me see." He ran a hand through his hair, shaking his head, his voice rising in desperation. "Clarice, please, I love you." That word again, hollow, overused, useless. I met his eyes one last time and felt nothing. Not love, not anger, just release. "I hope someday you understand," I told him, my hand resting on the door. "What you lost wasn't a marriage. It was mercy." His expression fell, and for a brief second I almost pitied him. Almost. Then I closed the door slowly, letting the click of the lock mark the end of something that had already died long ago. On the other side, I heard him whisper my name, broken and small. But I didn't turn back. Some echoes aren't meant to be answered. The house was silent again, but this time the quiet didn't hurt. It healed. I walked to the window and watched as Matt stood there for a few seconds, shoulders heavy, before finally walking away. It was strange how peace didn't come with fireworks or tears, but with stillness. For the first time in months, I could breathe without the weight of betrayal sitting on my chest. I'd thought revenge would feel loud, fiery, dramatic. But no, real revenge was quiet. It was the calm that came when justice finally met its mark. In the days that followed, the whispers in town grew. Amanda left the city, too ashamed to face anyone. Matt tried to rebuild, but everyone knew. His name had become a cautionary tale. People smiled at me differently now, not out of pity, but out of respect. They called me strong, brave, resilient. I didn't correct them. They didn't need to know that strength isn't born. It's forged, painfully, from every lie you've had to survive. I'd become something I never planned to be, untouchable. Every night, I'd sit by the fire with a glass of wine, replaying the past not with sorrow, but with clarity. I didn't need apologies, explanations, or closure. I'd already given myself all of that. Matt and Amanda had written their ending the moment they chose deceit. Mine was still unfolding, brighter, sharper, free. As the flames danced in the fireplace, I smiled to myself. The storm had passed, and for once I wasn't afraid of the quiet. The quiet was mine now. Months passed, and the chaos that once consumed my life became a distant echo. I moved into a small apartment near the beach, nothing fancy but peaceful mine. Every morning, I'd walk along the shore with a coffee in hand, letting the salt air wash away what was left of the past. It's funny how the ocean can sound like forgiveness if you listen long enough. I'd stopped checking my phone for messages that never came. The silence that used to haunt me now felt like a friend sitting quietly beside me. One afternoon, I found myself in a cozy cafe overlooking the water. The hum of chatter, the clinking of cups, all of it felt beautifully ordinary. My lawyer's message popped up on the screen. Divorce finalized. I stared at those two words for a moment, letting their weight settle in. Not pain, not relief, just freedom. A clean slate signed in ink. I smiled, took a deep breath, and ordered another coffee. Extra strong, just how I like it now. Lena, my oldest friend, slid into the seat across from me, her grin as familiar as sunlight. "You look lighter," she said, studying me. "Happier." I laughed softly, stirring my drink. "That's because I finally learned something important," I said. She raised an eyebrow. "And what's that?" I met her gaze, calm and certain. Revenge isn't about hurting them. It's about reminding yourself that you survived them. She smiled, but I could tell she felt the truth in it. Some lessons aren't told, they're lived. After Lena left, I stayed there a while, watching the waves stretch and collapse against the sand, a rhythm that felt a lot like healing. The world looked softer now. Colors seemed fuller, sounds clearer, even the air lighter. I realized that peace doesn't arrive with fanfare. It slips in quietly, like the tide returning to shore. I no longer replayed the betrayal in my head, no longer wondered why or how. Those questions belonged to another version of me, the one who still waited for answers. The woman I'd become no longer needed them. As the sun began to sink, I gathered my things and walked toward the beach. The sand was cool under my feet, and the sky was streaked with gold and lilac. I thought about all the nights I'd cried, all the times I'd doubted my own worth, and how every tear had carved space for strength. I didn't forgive Matt or Amanda, not yet, maybe not ever. But I forgave myself for staying too long, for trusting too deeply, for loving without armor. That kind of forgiveness felt like breathing for the first time. I reached the shoreline and closed my eyes, listening to the gentle hiss of the waves. Somewhere behind me, laughter from strangers floated through the air, the sound of life moving on. I smiled. It felt good to be part of that again, to exist without the weight of someone else's mistakes. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living, rebuilding, beginning. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't afraid of what came next. That night, back in my apartment, I opened the windows and let the ocean breeze sweep through the room. The scent of salt and jasmine filled the air, mingling with the faint hum of the city below. I poured myself a glass of wine, sat by the window, and watched the moon rise over the water. For the first time in years, I didn't feel restless. My body felt lighter, my mind quieter. I'd spent so long waiting for peace to return, and now it was finally here. Not loud or dramatic, but steady, like the rhythm of my own heartbeat. I picked up my journal, something I hadn't touched since before everything fell apart. The pages smelled faintly of ink and time. I began to write, not about pain, but about what came after it. About strength, clarity, and the strange beauty of rebuilding yourself from ashes. I wrote about learning to sleep without checking my phone, about laughing without hesitation, and about the power of walking away without needing to be understood. The words flowed easily, like they'd been waiting for me to catch up. When I finally set the pen down, I felt something shift, a quiet sense of completion. I leaned back, gazing out at the shimmering horizon, and smiled to myself. They thought breaking me would be easy, I whispered under my breath, the words soft but sure. But I don't break. I rebuild. The clock ticked gently in the background, marking the end of one story and the beginning of another. Mine. And for the first time in a very long time, I slept. Deeply. Peacefully. Unafraid.